everybody. Welcome to Conversations on Women, Money, and Spirit. I'm Kayla Jetta, and I'm here with my partner in crime and life, my mom, Lisa Limata.
Hey, welcome everybody.
And we are here with our good friend, Lisa Almquist. We're going to tell you all about Lisa in a minute, but we just want to set you up a little bit for what we have going on. So we are interviewing 5 women who we feel are incredible human beings. And we asked them to come and have a virtual coffee date with us where we just talk about women, money, and spirit all together. This is something that Lisa and I do all the time. We're frequently with these women that we're interviewing or our friends, and we're talking about things like this. And we often say, wouldn't it be amazing if other people could be a fly on the wall for these conversations? So that's what we want to do today.
I think, and just before we introduce Lisa and get into all that, one thing I want to say about this series, I just think it's such an important conversation. And like Kayla said, it's not being, not everyone's having this conversation. And from the feedback we're getting from some of our clients and, just some other people is I think having this conversation around spirituality and money as women is so important and so needed right now.
Absolutely. So we're excited. Lisa, will you introduce yourself? I feel like I could say so many things about you, but give us the high level overview. What should people know about who you are and what you're up to in the world?
Okay. Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa. I am a spiritual mentor, healer, soul diving, entrepreneurial goddess. I don't know exactly what you put it as. I work with people who are looking to go on deep dive soulful journeys towards trauma release, healing, issues around worthiness, energetic vibration, misalignment, anything kind of along that line. I've been a healer for probably at this point, well, actually I've been a healer all my life. Unaware really, and began training about 12 years ago, and then really was very much stuck in exactly the topic that we're going to be talking about today for many, many, many years until about 4 years ago, a little bit less than that, probably 3, and stepped into actually offering my soulful calling as a business. And so that's, I guess, kind of who I am and what I do. Does that work? I mean, add stuff in. You guys both know me, so throw it in.
It's going to be such a good conversation. And for those of you who maybe don't know, if you're not typically in our circle, Lisa's my best friend. She is a soul sister to both Kayla and I. We love her so much. And we've been mutual clients of each other in addition to our friendship. So I think that this is going to be a super juicy conversation.
Yes, I can't wait. Okay, I'll kick us off and we'll just jump right in. So my first question, Lisa, this series is called Conversations on Women, Money, and Spirit. And I think that most of us, when we say women, we're like, yep, I know what that is. When we say money, we're like, yep, I know what that is. But spirit is something that when we say spirit, I think a lot of people have different interpretations of it, which is beautiful. So what does spirit mean to you?
Oh, spirit is connection to self, which means also connection to divine, 100%. And divine is simply whatever it is that is your source of power. It is God, it is oneness, it is nature, it is all, it is the universe, it is all of those things. And so when we talk about spirit, and I'm talking about it like an individual spirituality, that's it. It's individual as well as collective for me. So, yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. What does your typical spiritual practice look like?
Personally?
Yeah.
Like on a daily basis, kind of like routine kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it depends on how crabby I am when I get up. No, I'm just kidding. In a nutshell, it will, in some way, shape, or form, it changes a little bit each day, but it always has meditation. It always has gratitude. It always has, to be honest, puppy snuggle time. These are things that are very important. Anything that brings me in alignment in my place of joy, that is where spirituality, that's where it births. Okay. So for me, my place of joy every day starts with connection to self, so that I can then move out of connection to self into connection to others. Because everything, it starts from within and then connects out from there. And I think that's actually where a lot of people get kind of, I don't want to say lost, but misguided or misdirected in their pursuit of connection and things like that. They don't start with looking within themselves. This is why I love the fact that you just asked the question about what do you do with your own spiritual practices. I have all kinds of different practices that I use that are different releases, different calling in of grounding practices. I work with archangels and angelic beings of light as well, and so I spend a lot of time in communication. That's a little bit complicated, probably more so for this, not necessarily for this conversation, but that's part of it. The whole purpose around any kind of daily spiritual practice, especially for me, is one that brings you into complete alignment, connection to self, which is connection to source and divine, which then helps you to serve others. Yeah.
That's such a beautiful explanation. Yeah, I love that. You were speaking, I was just thinking, could you, like, when you say connection to self, I immediately think connection to soul. Like, we talk a lot about like the ego brain and soul and, some of those things. Even in Rise, right, as entrepreneurs, it's important that we are led by soul and not led by fear, right? So I was relating to when you were saying connection to self is like connection to love, connection to like this your inner guide, right? Like inner wisdom. Would you call it that, or do we see that differently?
No, I would call it that. As a matter of fact, connection to self is really that connection to your I am presence, that birthright that everybody has, that is who they are, their reason for being, their energy that is outside of what their mind and the third dimension universe that we walk around in here seeks to tell us that it has to be. It's the realness of who you are. So yes, connection to self isn't connection to self. It's not connection to self. It's connection to self. Yeah. Difference. Yeah. So yeah, completely in agreement with that. Yeah.
And okay, when you just said that, it makes it so obvious that connection to ourself, connection to our soul, to our intuition is what allows us to also be connected with our physical self.
Bingo.
Because it's inside out.
Yes. Because all of our energetic bodies, we have, our mind, our emotional body, our physical body, our spiritual body, all of these energetic bodies, they're all connected. So, but the key to it, if you really want to be in alignment and create what it is that is in your highest good, meaning your higher self's sense of purpose, is to start there. So when you get real connected to what is it that is your thing? What brings you to that place? And this brings us right back around to the first question that you talked about. And that is, what's your spiritual practices look like every day? Because whatever you're drawn to be doing is what is bringing you into that creation joy portal. And that is always your key and your gateway into your expression of yourself at your soul level, for sure.
Okay, so that was beautiful. Let's keep going with that. So then if someone is connecting with their self, they're connecting with joy, and they can't help but be led to express their soul, their purpose out in the world, especially for entrepreneurs, what often happens is we're simply answering the call of our soul, and it turns out that that's our life's work. That's the work that we do as entrepreneurs. Yes. And so, of course, it makes sense that we get to receive from that, and we get to receive money because that's how our system is set up right now.
Right. And where we run into blocks with that is old energy that has, for millennia, sought to teach us that our soulful work is something that you must be in a place of poverty with. And it's not. If we're really because let's face it, this is none of the woo-woo attached to any of this. We live on a planet We live where we need money. We live where we need to be able to eat. We're still in a third dimension body of form. That's what all of this soulful work is about, is to learn how do we move forward in our soul's purpose for why we're here, but still be able to walk around in this body while we're doing it. And we have to play by the rules that we have set up as a collective in order to do that. And one of the rules we have set up as a collective right now is money. That's just part of it. So if you really want to be able to spend all of your time and all of your energy and all of your connection in that place of joy where your soul is bringing you to bring you into a place where you are then offering something, you have to be able to make a living doing it. This is exactly why I didn't do it before. Well, there were some other things. I didn't understand structure of, what to do with setting up a business and all of that, which is a different block, okay? But the bigger one was, I can't charge people for this. How do I do that? I really struggled for a very long time with here was my fear. Let me tell you, this is what it was in a nutshell. How can I say and truly believe that what it is I am offering is so innately available to everybody? How can I charge people to help them get to it?
Yes, that is so good. And I think you're the perfect person to have this conversation, because I've seen you move from that question into a thriving, successful, sold out business where you are now.
Right.
And it's also, like I was saying in the beginning, it's something we hear from a lot of our clients, especially those who work. I think it can happen in any career choice, but I think especially in the light worker kind of spirituality field, and even, service providers in general, but
right.
Definitely those in the spiritual field. So how did you move through that? Like, what was the shift that took you from that line of belief to where you are now?
Not in a pretty way.
They never are.
Kicking
oh, really? I'm shocked.
Yeah, kicking and screaming with my best friend, Lisa, pulling me along and saying to me, do you hear yourself? And every time I'd be like, okay, I know, I hear it, I know it. But I'm going to answer that in a second. But I want to go back to something you just said, Lisa. This is really not, it is about being a light worker. That's absolutely true. But we are all spirit beings of light. We are all light workers. We all bring our light forward to be able to have connection with other beings. That is why we are here. And what we don't understand on a conscious level, many people don't understand on a conscious level, including myself for a long, long time, was that that's the whole purpose. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whatever you are doing here on this planet, whatever it is that brings in the third dimension, money and other things that we need in order to be able to continue to reside in this body, that's irrelevant. As long as where it's coming from is your source of joy. If it's coming from your source of joy, it doesn't matter if you are a pilot. It doesn't matter if you are a teacher. It doesn't matter if you are a spiritual light worker. It doesn't matter if you are a banker. It doesn't matter if you are a garbage man. It doesn't matter. If that is your jam and that is what brings you to your highest vibration so that your light can connect to other people, that's what your whole point is. So I think the whole topic of spirituality and money, we're just finally getting to those of us that are in this realm. Everybody else, for whatever reasons, has always said, well, it's perfectly fine if you are a pilot to make money. It's perfectly fine if you are, any of those other examples that I gave to make money. Well, why is it that it's not perfectly fine if you are trying to help other people find what is their joy source? Why is that not okay to make money?
Yeah.
Okay, and then that has me think, like, So if someone is living in poverty and they don't wish to, that's not an experience that they have chosen for themselves, you know, that, or that they're wanting to choose for themselves.
Right.
It has me feel like, well, if we follow that, predictably what's happening is they're really not connected to their joy, to their soul. And so they're operating like the work that they're doing is really out of alignment
Bingo.
with who they are.
Absolutely. That's why what you guys are doing with the soulful, spiritual-based entrepreneurial work is so powerful, because it's the soulful work that is the catapult. That's what pushes you up. Once you're in alignment with all of that, the rest is the unfolding of the entrepreneurial part of it. And you guys are blending the two together, which is just, that's why it's just so perfect.
We see that all the time with our clients. Like, instead of coming to us like, what steps do I have to take? What tangible skills we have to do? We're like, okay, let's take a step back and make sure that when you do take action, it's coming from a fully aligned place. It's coming from pure joy. And it's like the thing that your soul is like, we must do this. Then when you take the action, it will absolutely land, and you can't help but receive money.
Right.
Versus,
and here's the other thing that starts to happen with that. Not only can you not help but receive money as long as you have set up your structure in order to receive the money, is you can do it forever. Meaning you don't get, now Lisa's going to argue with me on this because we were just talking about how I'm like, wow, really tired lately, but you don't get burned out on it, because if you're in alignment, you're not in resistance energy. It's the resistance energy when you're out of alignment that taps you out, because alignment is also about giving of yourself in a way that is only, okay, maybe only isn't the right word, giving of yourself in a way that also gives to you. So you're in this perpetual give and receive, giving out of your cup and filling your cup at the same time, so that you don't have to, okay, fill your cup, take a break, disconnect from your joy, fill your cup with something else, and then give until it's empty again. It's just this never-ending give and receive. And that's the divine flow that I talk about. Anybody who's ever worked with me, they understand what I'm talking about now.
So beautiful. Yeah, and you were just saying, you know, like having some burnout, but the way I see the kind of burnout we were just talking about, what also can happen is when you're following your bliss, you're following your joy, it's like, okay, you know, here's the path, follow it. What I've seen happen with you, Lisa, is like you've reached that point where you're like, okay, full roster, full clients.
Yeah.
Now, you know, because the work you do is so powerful and impactful, you have so many people coming to you, the opportunity just gets to shift as to, great, I get to do this work in a way that allows me to reach more people without more hours. Yeah. And it just is like a call on you to be expanding. So that's different than like a burnout of like, let me just drive myself to the ground. It's like,
totally.
Holy cow, the people, like, here are all the people, now I get to shift, right? Yeah. And so and we've gone through that too. And I think that's like part of the entrepreneurial path. But if you stay in that joy, which you are, yes, then you've got that inner guidance that's like, oh, okay, I see. Yes. It's just time for me to pivot in this way.
Yes. And that is also part of the whole spirituality component to this, is because when things start to align and shift things in a certain direction, you have to be in a place of trust of self and surrender in order to be able to see, okay, this is moving this way, and then not allow your mind ego to want to step in and say, oh, but no, this is how we do it. No, I'm not going this way. Whatever archangel's trying to tell me to do that, no matter how much I argue, I am going that way. And that's also about spirituality and business. They don't have to be separate. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would be having, number one, if I would even be videotaped at all, that would have been a no. But number two, would I be having this conversation? I would have been like, I'm the last person you want to have that conversation with, because I was stuck in poverty consciousness. Now, some of that from my energy, what I mean by poverty consciousness, is I was in alignment with the only value I can give from a spiritual place must come from a place of lack. Okay? And until I switched that, I was going to continue to run that cycle constantly over and over and over again. Yes. And poverty consciousness for healers specifically is something that we bring lifetime to lifetime. Okay. This comes from a long line of, and we're still in it. Look at some of our beautiful religious institutions are still stuck in some dogmatic stuff of you must be destitute, poor, in order to have value to give. Like you have to sacrifice everything. And what I'm really starting to learn here is if you are truly in alignment with you and everyone being of a co-created, shared space of one divine being, okay, literally sisters and brothers of light, when you get to that, you realize the only way to do that is to be in alignment with being able to give. And the only way you can give is when you receive. And when that starts to happen, it's just like, especially now in the energy on our planet right now, since we're on all of this ascension, it's almost instant. The minute you get it, all of a sudden you're going to get it. It's just going to be like you give and you receive and you notice it right away because the awareness energy is so clear. So, but that does not mean that there are not many of us, including myself, that have a lot of blocks that we need to work through that keep us from this understanding that we are worthy of receiving. And that comes really down to it.
That's just the thing. It's like step one is the awareness, getting that the old paradigms, the old systems, the old beliefs might not be serving us anymore. And we actually can choose to step out of it. And then two, realizing that it's a journey, that we don't just flip the light switch on once and we're like, aha, now I get how worthy I am and I'll just receive endlessly forever. But we actually get to show up and do this work every single day. And I always describe it to my clients like this. It's like a video game with different levels. So you get through level 1 and you complete it. And then you think that like, what? I'm started from the beginning. Well, it looks like the beginning, but you're actually at level 2 now.
Exactly.
And there's new challenges and some are familiar, but we're just and thank goodness, because so long as we're on the journey and figuring out again, it means that we're alive. So like bring on the next level.
Yeah, I think that's so good. It's like, okay, I was like, okay, receiving this much and this feels good. And now it's like the universe is like, oh, but there's a whole new level, right? Which is, I think, where you're at least. It's like, okay, now, whoa, there's a whole new level and I get to step into this new place. I think what's been fun for Kayla and I to watch about your journey and your rise with this has been to see how many more people you've impacted. Like as you embraced the I get to charge for this, how many more people and people we know who we've seen be so powerfully impacted by your work.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and it's so amazing to see, right? And it's actually, that is the way we make the biggest difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so cool to see the ways that we just work in tandem. And when people really choose to lean into both the spirit and the owning our value and worth, which is like all the same,
right?
Results that start to happen.
Right. It's all the same, but most people have not been raised in an understanding of that. Most people have been raised in an understanding of, you work hard, you do almost like the separation of church and state. Okay. It's not, we need to rewrite that narrative. And I think that's what's happening is when we start, can you imagine a world where everybody's soul drove what it is that they expressed and did on the planet? Think about that. Everybody would be in alignment with everything that is for them. And then everyone would also understand that so is everyone else. So all of this fighting about my way versus your way, all of those things, they would still be there, but nobody would give it the energy that it has right now in running the show. We would be in a place where those situations would give us the discussion points, and we now have the tools in which to look at, okay, where can we shift with something with that? How can we, to use one of Kayla's phrases, how can we source that? That's where we're headed, but we have to be able to continue to change the narrative on all of it, or we will be stuck in jobs that do not fill us from our joy source just to make money. And then nobody creates anything that is sustainable for their soulful life from doing that.
Yeah. I'd love to shift the conversation a little bit and add in a focus around women. And I think that I know that for Lisa and I, when we first created this series, we called it Conversation on Women, Money, and Spirit. What we know is this is actually a conversation for anyone, for all humans. And when we say women, yes, we mean women, but what we really mean is those of us who are really coming from a place of feminine energy, because so often historically, money has really been connected with masculine energy. And so I think that those who are really coming from a place of masculine energy, talking about money is much more natural. So how do we shift into this conversation? So I guess my question after all that is like, so what about women and money? Like, what's your thought on talking about those two things together?
I actually think the conversation about women and money has less to do with, okay, how do I say this? It's absolutely connected with spirituality, but where it's coming from is the rise of the divine feminine energy that is here on the planet now, where we are finally stepping into our understanding of our power to be able, and again, when I say our, I'm just meaning the feminine divine is coming into the understanding of its power in balancing out that masculine. That masculine, you're right, has had absolutely no problem in having any conversations around money. As a matter of fact, it has been a control of that third dimension consciousness. Well, we're breaking out of just that third dimension and moving into a higher level of being, one that's more from a place of compassion and releasing of judgment. And when you do that, it balances out that. It balances out the dominance, so to speak, of that masculine energy. But it creates more power for everyone to be in alignment and create. Now, where it really has, what I want to say, the blocks, is for the first time when women are stepping in, what we are doing is we are healing. We have to heal those old structures and those old narratives that have in a different vibration sought to hold us into a specific role. And now we're having to bust out of that. And for many women and men that are carrying a rising divine feminine energy, that's where all of your triggers are going to come in. That is where all of your old wounding is going to come in. That is where, in order to really step into your understanding of your ability to create a livelihood from your spirituality, from your joy source, you're going to have to look at your wounds. Mm-hmm. You have to first. That's number one.
I love that. And I think, I say all the time, one of the things I think that is so beautiful about the entrepreneurial journey is it is going to shake up to the surface those old wounds, just like you just said, Lisa. It brings it all up. And, to go forward and to really be successful in this business, it's a requirement for us to look at those old belief structures and systems and things that are there so that we can heal that to go forward. And I also love that you really brought up it's this balance, right? It's not about like women being in power and ruling over men. It's not at all about that, or the feminine being over the masculine. It's about getting back to that place where we have balance, where we have cohesion. And I think that's what a lot of this conversation is also about.
I completely agree. And to even take that a little one step even further, not only do we have to acknowledge that it's in the balance that we create the power, but at the same time, the masculine energy that has run the show for a very long time has done a beautiful job, but it's not serving us where we need to be headed right now. So it needs to have the blending. Okay, masculine energy is about drive. It's about power, control, money. It's all of those positive pushing forward. It's a very pushing energy. Mm-hmm. Feminine energy is about compassion and forgiveness and grace. If you combine those two things together, can you imagine what happens with all of that? But one of the things that I think we need to be mindful of is the planet and the energy that we are in. This is new to everybody who's been dancing in this, okay? So anybody who has been living, especially for a long time, in a very divine masculine dominated energy, they're gonna be like, whoa, what is this? Therefore, they're going to trigger and challenge the rising divine feminine energy that's coming in. This is actually what I think is more of the pushback to feminism and to women in, especially in very powerful positions. It's a lack of understanding that when we open the door to everyone, nobody loses anything. It's that third dimension that's trying to hold us into, oh, we got to keep it the same way, or I'm going to lose my something. No, you're only going to expand. But it requires that feminine energy of compassion wrapped around that divine masculine to allow that merging to happen.
I'm having two thoughts that are kind of weaving around one another around this topic. So one is, I'm curious and feeling like the guilt that women often feel about either feeling guilty for simply desiring money, or feel guilty for having money, or feel guilty for making money. It makes sense that it comes from this old way of doing money that wasn't really rooted in the compassionate energy. And then the second thought is like, so it makes a lot of sense that with this rising divine feminine energy, what we really get to do around that guilt that we have is really have some compassion for ourselves.
Yes, that's fifth dimension right there. Having compassion for yourself around that. And when you actually, and here's how this can look. When you have compassion around yourself, sitting in something that feels uncomfortable, you allow yourself the opportunity to bring it into a different alignment. But you got to sit in it. You can't stick your head in the sand with it. That's where the trigger comes in, and the healing happens through the compassion.
Okay, so then the other thing I'm thinking about is something that Lisa and I coach our clients on a lot, and coach our clients to coach their or to support their clients on, is the permission conversation around money. We see it in a lot of partnerships. You know, it could be like two women business partners together, or just two women partners, but most often we see it with a woman and her significant other, especially if her significant other is really in a masculine energy, that there's this feeling that I actually have to get permission for me to make choices about money. And I know that you've really created a shift with this. So how do we create that shift?
You know, that's complicated. Yeah, because I really danced in this for a long time. Lisa knows this very well. It all comes from a fear. It's all fear-based, 100%. And it's going to be different for each individual person. This is why the coaching work is really, really important when it comes down to this specific thing. Because everybody brings their own stuff. They bring their own past life. They bring their own soul contract stuff here, the things that they are meant to learn, the people they are meant to be with in order to hold presence so that they can actually have those beautiful gifted triggers that come to them so they can heal through things. It's incredibly soulfully individualized, even though we are all of one light. Those woundings are going to manifest and are going to show themselves in different ways in connection to permission. Okay, for some people, permission means I need to make sure that I'm not going to jeopardize my feeling of belongingness. Okay. For some people, permission means I need to make sure that my husband isn't going to be angry with me if what I want to do in my still unhealed perception of I'm not good enough isn't going to work. Okay. So those are just two examples. So you really have to get down to what is the need for permission. Why do you need to have the permission? Instead of just saying to somebody, look, you're a strong woman. You can step up and I've been a strong woman for my totally held mess for part of it. So it's been my problem. It wasn't even a problem. I'm being corrected right now. It was my opportunity. So we have to look at what are those opportunities, and they're different for everybody. And that's what coaching is really, really, really important, or soulful deep dive work is really important about, is to unearth what is it that brings you to that, I need to get permission, because it's gonna be different for everybody.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful part of the journey. And I think it's really about trusting ourselves, right? It's ultimately, when we trust ourselves, there is an opportunity for us to go deeper in our partnership, to just build that trust. And I I feel like I saw that happen for you. I know I've seen it happen for me in my life. Is like, as I stepped into trust and, you know, really becoming my full self, trusting my decision-making process,
Yes.
it was so easy for my partner to partner with me in that journey versus, you know, for me or for you or for another woman to go to their partner and say, you know, what do you think? Like, we're almost putting the decision on them because we're not trusting ourselves. And that's a lot of times where the breakdown occurs, not at their fault, right? It's like, it just is such an interesting healing that happens when we lean into the trust of ourselves and our own power to, like, you can just see that balance come in action.
Yes. And what I learned was, I was actually looking for my partner to give me permission on things that he had no full understanding of. And so I was putting all of that energy onto him, but at the same time, he never for 1 second ever questioned whether it was a good decision. It was, I had this narrative that I was running in my own head over wounding that I needed to work through my own stuff in order to not feel like that permission needed to come in. He is for our entire marriage has never, ever, ever needed to give me permission on anything. I needed to be given permission.
That is really, really juicy to get. It's not that our significant other or our business partner, whoever, is demanding that we have permission or that they get to give us permission. But often we set up the relationship thinking that, well, I don't really trust myself, so I better get permission to move forward. And that's a big opportunity for us.
Huge.
Yeah.
And it's a natural place for us to be right now because we're in rising divine feminine energy. I mean, if this was the norm, there'd be a million of Kayla and Lisa's doing this kind of work everywhere, and there isn't. So this is, we're charging forward in a new paradigm. So of course, all of it's going to be an unraveling and a discovery of who we really are at our core.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you say to the woman who likely she's listening to this, she's likely an entrepreneur or desiring to really take her soul work and bring it out into the world, which kind of by default will turn her into a soulful entrepreneur. What do you say to the woman who is just beginning that journey, or she's just beginning her spiritual journey and somehow these things are weaving together and she's at the beginning?
Wow. First off, be gentle. If you're going to go in with, full on, be prepared to have to look at your wounding. One of the number one things I would say is get real clear on finding somebody who is going to be supportive on what are your triggers. Because when you move forward in something like this, you're going to have a million of them. You're going to have a million of those things that are going to seek to pull you back into what your comfort zone is, what that box is. Because the mind ego seeks to keep you safe, okay? But it wants to keep you from doing something like, stepping out in the middle of the street and getting hit. It doesn't care about your growth, your spiritual growth. But on the other hand, your higher self, it's like, I'm not worried about any of this. I don't care how much turmoil you go through. I know what our higher self's purpose is. We're going to go through it and we're going to be fine. It's a matter of quieting the mind ego to allow the higher self to come forward. But when that mind ego starts speaking to you, especially in the beginning, it's important that you're not sticking your head in the sand. You're looking at, what is that trigger that's coming forward for me to heal? Because if you don't do those things right out the gate, then you're going to just simply attract, because that's how the law of attraction works. You're just simply going to attract that which you are in alignment with. So if you continue to be in alignment with something that is going to stop you from being able to move forward in a successful entrepreneurial path, you're going to continue to attract more situations like that. So you have to get in the muck. You do. You have to be willing to allow yourself to be messy in your start. If you think you're going to have everything all lined up, all ducks in a row, it's never going to happen. You just gotta start and then be willing to be vulnerable. That's something we haven't talked about here. The vulnerability piece when you're moving forward in a soulful entrepreneurial job or position, whatever it is that you're doing, that's key. So we have to look at what vulnerability is, how it feels and what we can do for supports while we're doing it. I fully believe anybody who is doing any kind of entrepreneurial work needs a team of support around them, whether it's a coach, whether it's a partner of some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, you stay in your own wounding, you stay in your own cycle that is simply your mind ego doing its beautiful job of keeping you safe, but it's not going to allow you to grow. How's that? Does that, I don't even know if that
so
covers
good.
what you meant.
What I'm hearing you say is like, when you're just starting out, like, be willing to let it get messy.
Yeah.
Get your rain boots on and get in the mud, because it's, you know, it gets to be messy, and that's so okay.
Yes.
Be willing to get it wrong, be willing to figure it out, be willing to be vulnerable, and not think you have to be perfect or have it all figured out along the way.
Yes, because I'll tell you why. When you think you know what it's going to look like, the universe, God's source, your higher self may have a completely different vision of what that is 100 times better than what your mind ego is trying to allow you to create. So if you step out of that and be in the muck of it, you could create something absolutely amazing that your mind would never have come up with.
Yes. That is
yeah, like when we're trying to grip and clutch and control, this is the way it has to look, and it has to stay so neat and exactly this, we're often missing out the way it could be even better. And it's not saying that it's for sure 100% always going to be messy, but if we give ourselves the space that it can be be messy, I'm willing to let it be messy.
That's the vulnerability.
Be guided.
Yeah, totally. And it also requires you to open up to the vulnerability of, I am uncomfortable with receiving money, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because you cannot continue on a sustained path without making a living doing it. There's no way that I could be in my service and my soul calling of what it is that I'm doing and touch the amount of people that I'm touching in the way that I'm touching to bring them into alignment with who they are. What I do with people has nothing to do with me. It has to do with me helping them to find themselves and that divine light within themselves. If I were busy doing a different job that wasn't my joy portal, that wasn't my soul work, I wouldn't be able to do that. So we have to get around that, I'm uncomfortable with this, and just start doing it. You just have to start doing it. Accept your first payment. That's your first thing. And it's not about being greedy. It's actually about being selfless. Because then you step into being able to give. It's that give and receive, give and receive. Money is just simply an energy. That is all it is.
Yes. This is exactly the thing that Lisa and I are saying all the time. I'm so excited that I'm grateful that we got to have this conversation. I know that talking about this, like anyone who's listening to this, I know this made a difference for them in some way, shape, or form. And I love the energy that this conversation is putting in the world today to cause that shift towards opening up to what is our joy portal and receiving and being willing to be uncomfortable so that we can be in our greatest service.
Absolutely. I love it. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you, Lisa, so much for being here and being willing to just jump on this call and be like, I don't even know what this is, but I'm down for it. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
So,
I love
Lisa,
you both.
where can people connect with you? If they want to follow up, hear more about who you are, what you do, where can they connect with you?
You can find me on Facebook or on Instagram, either my own personal, which is Lisa Almquist, or you can find me at my business page, either Facebook or Instagram, which is Zenglow Wellness. And then my website is zenglowwellness.com. So just check it out. You can also, my phone number is all over stuff too, so people can call me directly. There's no problem with any of that. Send me an email. I would love to connect. We can figure out what is maybe your best next step forward and go from there.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined us for this conversation. Lisa and I have created we have more experts, and we have some other free workshops that we're going to be sharing soon with you around this conversation on women, money, and spirit to support you in this next step. So we're so grateful that you joined us for this journey. Thank you so much, everyone.